And joining us now to take a look at the weather forecast here for the week ahead as we head to the Christmas holiday, we welcome in our good friend Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien. Eric, good to catch up with you. And I know a lot of folks across the country, just to start to kind of recap, digging out from last week's snowstorm. And we got another one on tap we're going to talk about in a minute. But man, last week, crazy snow totals up across the northern plains, upper Midwest, Eric.
Yeah, and remember that same storm started in California where it gave 4 feet of snow to the Sierra Nevada. So then it, came out of Wyoming, Montana, getting into the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and some places in there saw 2 feet of snow and 50-mile-an-hour winds. So I'll have to go back and look, but I think there were blizzard warnings at some point in the plains for 5 days. Initially on the snow, then followed up with the ground blizzard. And don't forget, this thing eventually hit New England, and it's just today leaving Maine. It's just finally offshore. I almost had like storm fatigue just talking about it. I'm like, give me something new. But unfortunately, the thing that's new is no fun either, the cold air that's coming in. But I'll say this about this last system. The total amount of precipitation that it did put down is going to be very important for the rest of the year, because the snowpack that's over the north, there's 1.5 to 2 inches of liquid in that. Some of that will still be around to get into the soil at some point in the distant future. But over the Midwest, we had rains that came through and helped break up the drought issues here. And the Mississippi River is up to 10 feet now. It was at one point 12 feet below low stage. It's now 10 feet. So that's a 22-foot rise overall in the river level, which is good. No, that's more than it's like 27 feet if I remember correct. I'll go look that up again. Doesn't matter. The river's up and you can move stuff on it. It's not up to where it was back before all this started, but it's recovering. So we got to take, I guess, the good with the bad on that last system. But boy, was the bad in the northern plains. I'm glad I didn't have to go there.
I totally agree. And I know folks are going to be digging out for quite some time with some of those heavy snow totals. You mentioned it, though. We got to turn our attention to not one, but two things here this week heading to Christmas. One of which, very, very cold Arctic air across a big part of the country. And then another storm system setting up here ahead of Christmas this week. So talk about both those. Let's start with the cold, Eric.
Yeah, so the question everyone's wondering is how cold is it going to be? And what's amazing about it is the air temperature near the surface will actually match the air temperature about 3 miles above our heads. That's how cold the air is. But it's a very shallow layer of cold air, which means it's not going to get over the mountains. So the Rockies are going to channel it east. Temperatures could be 30 to 40 degrees colder than normal. When you add to that the winds will be coming out of the northwest at 30 to 50 miles an hour, we could have wind chill values below minus 60 in places in the plains. This is terrible for cow-calf operations, ranchers, just its exposure. And unfortunately, this is the type of temperatures that are life-threatening to both man and livestock. It's going to be rough. Gets all the way to the East Coast by Christmas. And the trajectories, I just did this for a group in North Carolina this morning. I said, do you want to know where your air's coming from by Christmas? I plotted them. It started off 3 days ago, smack dab over the North Pole. That's where that cold air is coming from. And it's just incredible to see the depth of it. What's going to ride the nose of that is probably the second thing you're going to ask me is this winter storm, which we watched all weekend long. Every new model run took it away from being a massive East Coast winter storm to a Midwest Great Lakes winter storm. That happens sometimes. We get a westward progression in the model runs to tell us where the system's going to be. And there could potentially be a spot in the midsection of the country that gets a bunch of snow. My grandma's quite upset about this because one of the forecasts where she lives over in Western Illinois put down 20 inches and she wants us all at her house on Christmas. And I called her and I said, Grandma, I'm not sure. This is going to be pretty rough. And she says, can't you do something about this? And I'm like, no, I wish I could, Grandma, but she's asked me that a dozen times over my life. So anyways, that system I can't even tell you where the heavy snow is going to be just yet. I've got to see more data on this, but it could be a big Midwestern system and the cold air, like you said, holy smokes. I mean, it's going to be cold through Christmas.
Definitely. Do we have a timing at least of some of the snow yet, or is that still kind of up in the air right now?
Yeah. So the system is going to be tomorrow on Tuesday in Idaho, by Wednesday emerging in the plains, by Thursday rapidly developing somewhere between Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan. I mean, it's a big bullseye where it can hit. but it's going to be that time frame: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then curl quickly into the Eastern Great Lakes by Christmas Eve.
All right. Well, we got some other areas to talk about as well here today. I want to talk just South America as well. I know maybe looking for some better rain in Argentina, possibly. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so we watched over the weekend some shifts around in La Nina that could possibly help with developing a front that's going to go through Argentina a week from now, really about 6 days from now, next Sunday. And if it does that, it could deliver a decent chance at getting in some rain. Now, remember, in order for Argentina's crops to be really successful, because of the lack of soil moisture, they're going to need routine rains. It's just like us. If we're in drought, your soil moisture isn't there. Each little bit just gets the top couple inches. So this could put like a temporary Band-Aid on the issue down there, but it's better rains. Now, Brazil, they're going to have massive rains to finish their crop. I mean, it's wet in Mato Grosso, Goiás, big northern, central, and eastern growing areas going forward. But we all want to know, what's that going to look like when the safrinha crop gets in, which is, I mean, they're going to start harvesting some early beans this week. So it's crazy to think, but that'll be in the far northern part of Mato Grosso that they're going to do that.
Well, and you mentioned La Nina in there as well. We've been talking about this the last couple of weeks. Are we on the last gasp of La Nina? What's the latest?
Well, La Ninas go out gasping, so they just keep kind of coming in and giving us little fits here. But here's the important thing: after this Arctic outbreak that's coming over us, we actually see the Pacific jet stream doing something it's not done yet this fall or this winter, and that is to go from Japan all the way to California. Normally it breaks up in the Gulf of Alaska, but that's one indication. The second indication is the trade winds, while they're reaching a peak right now, are starting to back off in the Indian Ocean. That's a second thing. So I think we're going to start to see the La Nina letting go. And for us, that probably means a pretty volatile winter. In other words, don't plan on 1 week being like the week before it. But it also means that the risk of us developing extensive drought this winter, in other words, building on what we've already got, that's off the table. I think we're going to see a drought reduction all winter long. And in South America, as a way to kind of finish this up, should we see by March very El Nino-like behavior in the atmosphere? It'll take the oceans a while to respond, but if we see some El Nino-like behavior in March, then all of a sudden we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about risk on the safrinha crop for being a little drier than normal. So there's all that on the table for us.
Well, plenty of stuff to think about. Eric, before we let you go, any other final thoughts you have for us here this week?
Yeah, I do think that I would change Santa's trajectory for delivering gifts this time, because the Pacific jet and how strong it is. If he goes east to west, which would make sense because of the time, right? The way the Earth rotates, he's going to be fighting a pretty fierce wind at jet stream levels. So I would make sure that everything's tuned up and the reindeer are well fed, because it's going to be a tough go going that direction against those winds.
I couldn't agree more. Well, we appreciate your time and insight as always, Eric. And I know we're going to talk to you coming up here in the new year. We'll give you the week off next week. Thanks so much for joining us. I wish you and yours a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we will talk to you in 2023. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you too. Have a good one.